welcome back to another episode of the Jockstrap Podcast. This is your host, Nick, along with your co-host, Colin, and we got a few interesting topics to talk about today. The first one we're going to jump into is Brady the greatest quarterback of all time? What do you think, Colin?
I mean, I think he's got to be. He's won 7 rings now. He is more than I'm almost positive every other franchise in NFL history by himself. So, I mean,
Yeah, I think the Steelers may be the only other team up there.
I think both the
Um,
Steelers and Patriots both have 6. So,
wow. Yeah, that's extremely impressive then. I think the seventh ring put him over the edge, and especially because he beat Mahomes, who a lot of people think is the next GOAT. It's essentially if Jordan would have beat LeBron while he was on the Wizards. That's what I compare it to. So
yeah,
the fact that Jordan, or if Jordan would have beat LeBron, LeBron would have never even been considered the GOAT, even in question. I think this solidifies Brady as the GOAT, and Mahomes will never be able to overcome that.
yeah, I agree. The fact that Brady beat Mahomes while Mahomes was in his prime and Brady was 43 now, I believe, that's just. I don't think. I mean, Mahomes probably have to win 10 rings for him to pass, in my opinion. And on top of that,
Yeah,
just
I
his
agree.
longevity, Brady's longevity of how long he's able to play is kind of ridiculous. He's
Yeah,
43.
I seen in an interview he actually said now he plans on playing till well past 45, maybe even 46. So that'll definitely be something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, he could probably do it. I mean, he's 43 and he's still a top quarterback in the league, so he could
Yeah,
definitely do it, I feel like.
how many rings do you think he's gonna end with?
Um, I personally think 7. I think that they'll definitely have a very good chance of repeating next year, but as the Chiefs shown this year, it's really hard to repeat. Repeating in the NFL is extremely hard. And, they were a great team, obviously, but they didn't do it. They got beat in the Super Bowl, so it just shows how hard it really is to repeat in the NFL as champions. So I think they'll make another good run at it, but I think they come up short next year.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. I'm gonna say they do repeat, and the reason why is because the conference that they're playing in, the NFC South, is extremely weak now without Breeze as the quarterback for the Saints. I feel like they're going to steamroll every team in that division. The Falcons aren't going to put up a fight. Neither are the Panthers. The Saints aren't nearly as good as they used to be. They're going to win that division with ease. They're going to be the number one seed. And I feel like they're going to get to the conference finals with absolutely no problem. I feel like they're going to meet up with the Bills this time in the Super Bowl, and I feel like they're going to win.
I could see that. I feel like their biggest problem, like you said, their division should be really easy. I think their biggest problem going into next year isn't going to be another team. It's going to be trying to re-sign all their free agents because Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin, Leonard Fournette, they're all free agents. I know they have a few more that I can't think of right now. They have a lot of free agents and they don't have all the money to re-sign them. So I feel like their biggest problem is going to be re-signing their free agents, not any team in their conference. I feel like they'll definitely beat them pretty easily.
Yeah, that's a great point you bring up there. I just seen that the Super Bowl parade was today. Yeah, this is the day that we're recording. Um, Bruce Arians said that Chris Godwin is not going anywhere. So there was probably some inside talks, and Chris Godwin probably agreed to come back next year, along with them giving him a pretty decent contract. In terms of Antonio Brown and Leonard Fournette, I think they've already made a substantial amount of money within their NFL career. I feel like at this point they just want to win. And Antonio Brown has vocally said before that he wants to play with Brady. He acknowledges Brady as the GOAT. So I feel like he'll take another veteran minimum just to play with Brady and go for another ring.
Yeah, I could see that. Also, I did see that Mike Evans said that he was willing to take a pay cut to make sure that they were able to bring them all back. But also, obviously depends on how much they would want because Fournette is still young. I know you said that he made a lot of money, but he is still young. He was only on his rookie contract, so he didn't make a lot of money. Um, so obviously there's only so much money you can take from one person. There's obviously only so much. Like he's not gonna allow them to take his whole contract. He's gotta make some money if you're gonna, be playing and put his body in the line like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree.
I definitely do
I feel
see. I definitely do see Chris Godwin at least him minimum coming back, and probably Antonio Brown too, because like you said, that he wants to play with Brady.
Yeah. I see Leonard Fournette accepting the fact that he's a running back in the league and that the shelf life and demand for them aren't that isn't as big as it used to be. So I think he will take a very acceptable deal just to come back, but it'll definitely be interesting to see because in terms of depth at the running back position, I think Ronald Jones is still a very good option if they needed to rely on him as a number one.
Yeah, and I actually saw a report today that maybe it was yesterday, I can't remember, but that Adrian Peterson actually wants to play the Brady too. So even if they couldn't bring Fournette back, I feel like they could definitely bring Peterson in at a better minimum, just to, so he could get that ring or have a chance at it.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our next topic here. Let's talk about the Carson Wentz trade market. What do you have for us on that, Colin?
It sounds like the main two teams right now are the Colts and the Bears, but it sounds like right now neither of those two teams are willing to pay what the Eagles want, because it sounds like they want two draft picks, which is just fucking ridiculous that they want to. Like, there's no way any team would be willing to give two draft picks for Carson Wentz, who led the league in interceptions last year with 15, only playing 12 games, and he also led the league in sacks too. Like, yet again, only playing 12 games. So the fact that he was that bad last year is just like ridiculous. No team's gonna give two first round picks for that quarterback. And then you add in his um, contract extension, which I believe starts next year. I believe it starts next season, which would mean that over the next 4 years, he'd be worth 100, I think, $34 million. And then on top of that, you add in the fact that he's had kind of a spotty injury history. Like, no way they'll get two first rounds for that. Not happening.
Yeah, I agree. As a Bears fan, I would absolutely despise the Bears if they made this trade. I've been seeing rumors that if the deal was to be done, it would take our first round pick this year and our first round pick next year and Nick Foles and possibly Tariq Cohen. I know on Twitter, Tariq Cohen cleared the air, said that he talked to the upper management with the Bears and he was not going to be involved in a trade if it was done. I'm not buying that. I feel like Ryan Pace has done one good thing in Chicago, and that's keeping all of his moves really low key. So if there actually was a deal in line, I feel like there's absolutely no way that it would have leaked out from the Bears front office.
Yeah, I agree. The Bears have the quietest front office football, probably. No, nothing leaks from there, which is one of the reasons why I think that possibly this whole Bears rumor might honestly be kind of completely false, because I mean, it makes a lot of sense. The Bears need a quarterback. Ryan Pace liked Carson Wentz a lot before, coming into the 2016 draft, but it might just be a play by the Eagles to drive up the price with the Colts, because there are so many reports coming out right now, like, big reports, but they're all coming from either Philadelphia or the national media, and nothing's coming out of Chicago, which makes me think that they're all reports, only coming out of Philadelphia sources, that are trying to drive the price up for the Colts. So they could honestly all be fake. I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah. Do you think that Carson Wentz, the decline that he's seen, is because of his skill, or do you think it's because of the system that he's in?
I think it's a combination of two things. I think it's a combination of other teams figuring him out. Defenses adjusting, seeing what he does good, and trying to take that away. I feel like that is one part of why he struggled so much last year. But I think the other part was, I think he was just fed up with the Eagles, organization as a whole. It sounded like he wasn't happy with Doug Peterson, that he was changing plays at the line of scrimmage just to frustrate him. And it also sounded like him and the general manager are having some sort of dispute. So I think he was just done with Eagles franchise as a whole, and he just basically gave up. I feel like that those two things is his main reason for decline this year.
Yeah, I feel like the Eagles at this point have almost no weapons. Zach Ertz more than likely not coming back to the Eagles. The wide receiving core was pretty much a bunch of dudes they found at YMCA. It was trash. I know they drafted, I believe, was it
Jalen,
Jalen Rieger?
yeah, they drafted
Jalen
him.
Rieger. he was a decent pickup. He didn't really shine the way a lot of the other rookie receivers did this year, like Justin Jefferson. But obviously not a big enough of an impact to, rejuvenate Carson Wentz's career.
Yeah, and just really quickly touch on the Zach Ertz thing. From what I heard, Zach Ertz might be packaged in a trade with Carson Wentz. It obviously depends on what team he gets traded to, but it sounds like the Eagles don't want anything to do with him at this point. They're looking to trade him.
hmm Yeah, at this point, what my gut is telling me is that they will end up on the Colts.
Yeah, I could definitely see that with Frank Wright. That's his name, right? The coach of the Colts.
Yep.
Okay, with him being the offensive coordinator for the Eagles for 2 years, back when Carson Wentz was on, when was still with, well, back during I think it was a Super Bowl run, he was the offensive coordinator, so it makes sense. Obviously they had chemistry, and he played really good while he was calling the plays for him. Um, and I think they might have had some sort of connection too when he was in college. I can't remember. Thought I read that. I can't remember though. I'm not big into college sports, but that might be.
hmm
But either way, though, I feel like that connection with the head coach of the Colts could definitely be a main reason why the Colts would go after him. It would make sense.
hmm Let's go ahead and jump into our next topic here. We're going to shift it up a little bit and jump into some NBA. So, what we wanted to bring to you guys was what we think is currently our top five teams in the NBA. So, I'll go ahead and go first with my top five. As of right now, I think the number one team in the NBA, hands down, has got to be the Lakers, which upsets me a little bit because I am not a LeBron fan at all. I think Jordan's the GOAT, hands down. You'll hear me talk about that a lot. But I do think the Lakers are the best team overall right now. They're very well rounded. They have star potential. They're really, really loaded at the bench position. They have guys like Alex Caruso, Montrezl Harrell coming off the bench that can, put up some clutch points and play some great defense. My second team is going to be the Clippers. They have struggled a little bit this season, but I think one healthy and Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are clicking. I think they're the second best team in the NBA. They're getting some decent production out of Nicholas Batum, who was on an absolute atrocious contract for the Hornets. Third team for me has got to be the Bucks. I think they are still the best team in the East, despite the Nets and the 76ers making really good runs. I think Giannis is never going to win a championship, but I think in terms of record and talent on the team, they're still third overall. For me, number four team in the NBA right now has got to be the Jazz. The Jazz are a team right now that's playing out of their mind. They are such a great team in terms of fundamental basketball, sharing the ball and playing great defense and hitting open shots that it's just crazy. They remind me a lot of the 90s Jazz. Donovan Mitchell, he's a really savvy guard, and obviously Rudy Gobert's nowhere near as gifted offensively as Karl Malone, but they just have that dynamic duo in terms of guard center that they had in the 90s. And my fifth team in the NBA right now has got to be the 76ers. They're playing insanely good too. They've made some really good pickups this offseason that have benefited them greatly. Danny Green has been a great 3-and-D player for them. Tobias Harris has really shown up now that I feel like he's got a new head coach and a new look on things. He's really stepped up his game, and Embiid is playing at an MVP level right now. Ben Simmons has seen a major decline in his stats, but his defense is extremely good, and their bench depth is really good too. Dwight Howard coming off the bench, giving them some really good minutes, and they have some other guys too. For example, Tyler or Tobias Thibault, I think his name is. Do you know his first name, Colin?
Talking about the Sixers.
Yeah,
Give me 1 second. Look at their roster. Uh, what are we talking about?
he's a shooting guard. I think his name's Thibault or Thibault, maybe.
I know who you're talking about, but he's not on the roster I'm looking at. Interesting. I'm looking at the score right now, the sports app, the score, and for some reason there are times where they won't put players on certain rosters.
Huh,
Like, for
that's
example,
interesting.
the Timberwolves for the longest time didn't have Karl Anthony Towns on their roster, so
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you heard it here first. Fuck the score. Don't use it. Just kidding. Sponsor us. Anyways, Seth Curry, absolute sharpshooter. He's a walking bucket. I think they're actually going to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. I believe versus the Celtics. I think they're going to match up. Now, let's talk about the Nets. I know a lot of you are probably questioning why they're not in my top 5, but I honestly hate this team. I think they are the worst possible thing that could have happened for basketball. It's just not going to work out. I mean, KD has proven that he can work with other stars and win a championship, but Kyrie and James Harden are the two people I'm worried about. There's absolutely no way they're going to work together. They're both way too ball dominant. They're both divas. They're both stupid as all hell. Kyrie is a flat earther. James Harden can't stay out of the strip clubs. I mean, that team chemistry is already brutal. I seen on ESPN the other night that he was already yelling at DeAndre Jordan on the sideline during a timeout. So they're already falling apart. They got their ass beat by the Pistons of all people. I wouldn't be surprised if they got first rounded, to be honest.
Yeah, I completely agree. Before this trade happened, I knew it was going to be bad because I heard the rumors about the Nets trade, and it's not looking good because, like you said, the chemistry is just not going to be great because as soon as they start losing, they're going to start pointing fingers at each other and not taking accountability because that's just who like James Harden and Kyrie Irving are. And like you said, Durant is able to work with other stars. Like, he obviously did with the Warriors, he's able to work with Klay Thompson and Steph Curry and Draymond Green. But James Harden and Kyrie cannot. There's a reason why Kyrie forced himself off of the um, Cavaliers whenever James was still on that team because he wanted to be, the main player on a team. So like that just shows you that he can't work with other legitimate stars like that if he can't play with LeBron. Like, and then of course you have James Harden who forced to trade from the Rockets. So that's just another like something that you really feel like you shouldn't do. And also it seemed like he was kind of like talking shit about the Rockets too before he left. And that's kind of what something DeMarcus Cousins brought up, that he was kind of like disrespecting the team and stuff before he left. So that team's not going to work chemistry wise. It won't work because like a topic you already brought up. I'm almost positive I read somewhere that James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving, before this trade happened, all three of them were top 10 in terms of usage percentage, which is how often a possession ends with either like a shot from them, a pass from them, or something like that. I can't remember, but it basically just tells you how often they have the ball in their hands. So if you have three people on one team in the top 10 of a usage percentage, it's not going to work. They're all too ball dominant. And then the last thing I have is their defense. Kevin Durant is a above average defender. He's pretty good at defense. But then you have James Harden, who might be the worst defender in basketball, and Kyrie Irving's pretty close to him in terms of how bad his defense is. So my prediction whenever this trade first happened was that the the Nets would probably lead the league in scoring this year, but they would probably also lead the league in points given up this year. And so far, it's looking like that's going to come true. I'm pretty sure the Nets are already leading the league in scoring. They're already leading the league in points against. So the team just, if they have an off night offensively, they're going to get blown out. It won't even be close because their defense is just so bad.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm actually surprised that DeMarcus Cousins didn't beat the absolute shit out of James Harden because he's a guy that you don't want to fuck with.
Yeah,
I'll just throw that out there.
yeah. You do not mess with DeMarcus Cousins. That dude's fucking massive. You stay
Yeah,
away.
yeah, he's definitely beat the fuck out of some people in his lifetime. That's for sure.
Yeah, he definitely has. He doesn't take shit. I can tell.
Let's go
So
ahead and move into our next topic here. We have the top 3 MVP candidates in the NBA right now. I'll go ahead and talk about my 3 first. So, number 1, as much as it is a fucking stab in the chest for me to say, LeBron James is leading the MVP race right now. He's just carrying that team to the best record in the NBA. He still, at this age, is a top 3 player in the NBA. I don't know how he's doing what he's doing right now, but it's pretty amazing to watch. He's shooting the 3 extremely well. he's still keeping his numbers pretty consistent with what he did in his MVP seasons previously. And just the overall team chemistry with the Lakers right now. I mean, they can't be stopped. They can't be thrown off their game. I think it's going to carry into the playoffs. I think they're definitely going to win another championship. Number 2 for me, I got Jokic, the Coochie man. He is a baller. He's a walk-in bucket. He's a triple-double machine. He can rebound. He can, pass. He can shoot. He can drive. He can post up. He can do anything on the basketball court, which is weird because he looks like a fucking garbage man, but he's dropping 50 on LeBron's head some of these nights. And number 3 for me is Joel Embiid. This guy also can do a little bit of everything. He's been shooting the 3 extremely well this season. And I really think that he's carrying the 76ers to their success. Without him, they would not be anywhere near where they are right now. I think the last time I checked, they were either first or second in the East.
I think they're first.
Yeah, there's no way they'd be up there with the way Ben Simmons is playing right now. He's averaging close to 30 points a game, double-digit rebounds, decent amount of assists. He's playing great defense. But yeah, those are my top 3 right now.
I'll go into my top 3. I'm gonna go with LeBron and Jokic as my top 2, and that's in the same order as you because, obviously they're playing great. I'm not gonna go MD number 3 only because I don't have the exact same ranking as you. It would just be weird because then it'd be the same points we're touching on. So for my 3, because I wanted somebody different, I'm gonna go Donovan Mitchell. That Jazz team right now, almost positive, is the best team in the record right now as we're recording this. And he's obviously a big part of it. There's not a lot of offense on that team outside of him, because Gobert's the other star on that team, I guess you would say. Even though he averaged 13 points for his career, so yeah, he's a star. But the reason why he's a good player in the NBA though is because of his defense. Definitely not because of his offense. His range offensively, basically, if it's not in the layup range, he can't really do anything with it. So I feel like Donovan Mitchell, it would be my number 3. Just because of how he's really carrying that team right now offensively.
Yeah, that's a great point. He's definitely up there for me as well. He's probably in my top 5. And to reiterate on a point that you said, I think Rudy Gobert is trash. Whenever I compared Mitchell and him to Stockton and Malone, that was like a great value version of Stockton and Malone is what they are. I think Donovan Mitchell's better than John Stockton in a lot of aspects other than passing. And I think Karl Malone is better than Rudy Gobert in every aspect of the game except defense.
Yeah, I'm gonna go and take that a little bit one step further. I think John Stockton was a good defender, so I think John Stockton might be a better defender than Mitchell. But in terms of uh, Gobert, I think the only thing that Gobert is better at than Malone is shot blocking. I think overall defensively, Malone might have him. It's close in my opinion, but he definitely has been shot blocking. Outside of that, though, Malone beats everything else. It's not really even close for some of the things. Offensively, Malone could just take a game over. Gobert can't do that. The Gobert can't shoot anything past 3 or 4 feet. So offensively, he's borderline useless.
And he started COVID, so fuck him.
Yeah, he shut the NBA down. And I mean, he's the reason why the MLB got shut down too. It was the same night that he tested positive, the MLB got shut down too. So fuck him.
Yeah, I remember I was really pissed that night because I was waiting for the Pelicans game, which was one of the only games on that night, and I had a massive bet on the Pelicans. I was really confident, thought it was going to hit, and then it got canceled because of this fucker. I was so pissed.
Yeah, and then the baseball season got cut down to 62 games this year or last year, or 60 games. That just
I believe
sucked.
it was 60.
That just sucked. I wasn't happy about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, speaking of baseball, let's go ahead and jump into our baseball topics for tonight. The first one that we have for you guys here is the Andrew Benintendi trade that actually just broke today. So we have actually some really good details on that.
Yeah, so in that deal, the Red Sox got, you want to say the names? I have no idea how to say this name.
Yeah, I apologize in advance if we butcher these names. So the Red Sox got outfielder Franchi Cordero from the Royals and right-handed pitcher Josh Winchowski from the Mets. Now, the outfielder Franchi, he's an unranked prospect,
No,
and the right-handed.
Franchi is a MLB player.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's an
Okay,
MLB player. I've never heard of him
really?
either, so I have no
Yeah,
idea who he
I've never
is.
heard. I was just assuming he was a prospect at
Yeah,
that point.
I had to look him up to make sure that he wasn't a prospect.
Wow. So, that kind of tells you the value that they're getting there.
Yeah, and then
And
Josh is the Mets' 26th overall ranked prospect, so he's a right-handed pitcher. So, I mean, he
mhm.
might make the major leagues. You never know.
This was a three-team deal, by the way, guys. It was Red Sox, Royals, and the Mets. The Mets are making a ton of moves. They're being really aggressive. Steve Cohen bought the team, and he wants to win now.
Yeah.
So the Mets got Khalil Lee from the Royals. He is their number 8 prospect. What position is he, Colin?
He's an outfielder. I forgot to put that. Yeah, he's an outfielder.
Okay.
And
And then
then
the Mets.
the Mets are also trading a player to be named later. In the article I was reading, it didn't say who was going to get that player, but they are going to be trading a player to be named later. And of course, the Royals are going to get Andrew Benintendi in that deal.
Mhm.
So what do you think about this deal?
Yeah, I think that the Royals got a hell of a deal here. I think Andrew Benintendi is a phenomenal young player. I think he has a bright future ahead of him. He reminds me a lot of Alex Gordon, who is one of their current outfielders, who or did he retire yet?
I think he just retired last year. At the end of last year, I think he retired.
Okay. So Alex Gordon, they pretty much found his replacement immediately. He's got a great bat. He's got some legs on him. He's got a good arm in the outfield. He'll be a solid piece on their outfield for a long time. He can bat in the 2 hole. He can maybe even lead off if you really need someone to.
Yeah.
In terms of the Red Sox, I think they kind of got gypped here a little bit. I think they were kind of grasping for straws to get rid of Benintendi, um, which is kind of shocking to me because they're one of those teams where you don't really know if they're rebuilding or they're trying to contend because they make moves that constantly contradict each other. But I think they could have got a lot more out of Benintendi here. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Benintendi, I feel like he's definitely a great young player. He's only 26. He still has multiple years of team control left. He definitely could have gotten more out of him. The Red Sox could have, but they also could have rebuilt their team around him and that Verdugo guy, their outfielder they got from that Betts trade. I feel like they definitely could have built, if they were rebuilding, we don't know if they're going to or not, technically, because like you said, they have made moves contradicting themselves. But if they were going to rebuild, they could have, in my opinion, rebuilt around him and Verdugo. So I'm not sure why they're trading him because he's still really young. Like I said, he's 26. That's definitely a player that you could rebuild around. So yeah, I'm not understanding this move. They didn't get much out of him. Maybe they didn't want to pay him because his arbitration's coming up for him. Maybe they didn't want to pay him in that because obviously the salary's going to be going up. Outside of that, though, I don't really see another reason why they would want to get rid of him. In terms of player comparison, I honestly could see him being a Michael Bradley more than Alex Gordon because they're both like extremely, they're both left-handed hitting outfielders who are like really contact heavy. Like that's like their main asset and batting is their good contact. So I kind of see him more as him, maybe a little bit less so, but I still see him more like that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good comparison that you brought up. I think that another piece that the Red Sox have that they're not really utilizing to the best of their ability is Rafael Devers. I think he's a stud at third base. I think that he's going to be good for a really long time. And they still have Xander Bogaerts, so it really has me questioning what they are doing. They're obviously not going to re-sign Jackie Bradley. I don't know if he already signed with the team or not, but
He is
they're
not.
he is not.
No,
Okay.
he is not. It sounds like he wants a 4-year deal, even though he's 30 and has been pretty bad offensively his whole career outside of last year. So I would be shocked if he gets a 4-year deal. Personally, I'd be shocked if he gets anything more than a 1-year deal. So
Hmm.
that's definitely why he's still unsigned, and he's not going back to the Red Sox. He'll probably go to like I don't know, what's like a maybe like Baltimore, maybe Baltimore give him a contract, just some like bad team,
Yeah, I could see him going to like
the
Baltimore,
Rangers
like
maybe.
the Rangers, who knows, maybe the Rockies, just like a team that's trying to
Not
get
great.
any sort of eventual trade value out of like a veteran player.
Yeah, I could
I
definitely
feel
see
like
that.
that's the only way he'll be valuable. In terms of the Mets, I think that they got a really good deal out of this trade too. They got a top 10 prospect from the Royals. This kind of gives them a decent farm system since they have been having to get rid of a lot of assets within like the Lindor trade. This kind of rejuvenates their farm system a little bit with another top 10 prospect.
Yeah, I agree. A deal like this makes a lot of sense, getting a top 10 prospect after trading a few away in the Lindor trade, which I think that was a great trade for the franchise. If they really are trying to win now, which it looks like they are, um, getting, in my opinion, the best shortstop in baseball. I know a lot of people have Tatis Jr. as the best. I'm going to keep Lindor for now, just because he's produced for such a long time. Tatis is still really young, but I would say that if Tatis were to have a better year this year, then I would probably put him above Lindor. But getting a player like Lindor is definitely signaling to everybody that you're ready to contend. Here in the next year or two.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think Tatis, if he would have put up the same numbers in the second half of the season that he did the first half of the season last year, he would no doubt be the number one shortstop in baseball for me. But it's just the fact that he had such a heavy decline. And he's so young still. He's got so much more time to grow and so much more time to improve. I think eventually he'll work his way up to being the best shortstop in baseball. But as of right now, I think Lindor definitely still has the edge.
Yeah, I think as of right now, he's probably top three in my opinion. I think my top three would probably be Lindor, Tatis, and I think my number three might be a shock, Trevor Story. I think he's
That's
really
actually who I was gonna say
I
too.
think he's really underrated. He's a good defender. He's a great base runner. He hits for power and average. I think he's just extremely underrated. I don't know why he's not ranked higher, like just in general.
Hmm. Yeah, a person who I really thought was gonna take off that has kind of slowed down is Gleyber Torres. I thought he was gonna be eventually one of the top three shortstops in baseball, but he really had a down year last year due to injury.
Yeah, and I think he might have moved to second base now too. I'm not sure. I know he's
Yeah.
back. He's back at shortstop. He originally was at second base, but then he went back to shortstop after they got DJ LeMahieu.
Hmm.
But yeah, I
And now
agree
that they
too.
re-signed him, now that they re-signed DJ, he's definitely going to be at shortstop for the long term.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that he was gonna be better too. Really looked like he was gonna be good, but he hasn't taken off the way I thought he was going to. So he's still young. I think he's still like 24, so he still has plenty of time to reach that potential. He just hasn't done it yet. And
Yeah,
while talking about the Mets, I think we should talk about this report that I saw a couple hours ago. Um, that the Mets are looking to upgrade third base, which isn't surprising because, like you brought up, it looks like they really are trying to contend. So an upgrade at third base would make a lot of sense. And apparently, um, so far this offseason, the Mets have talked to the Cubs about Chris Bryant, a Chris Bryant trade, and the Reds about a Suarez trade. I think that's how you say his last name.
yeah, Suarez.
Okay, yeah, I'm terrible at pronouncing names, so. But yeah, they've talked to him too this offseason about a trade, or the Reds about a trade for him. So it really does look
I
like,
think I think if they're gonna make a move for a third baseman, now's the perfect time. After the Arenado trade, that just proved that the market for third baseman isn't as high as we originally thought it was, which is not good for us as a Cubs fan because that means out of Bryant, who was an MVP caliber player at one time, we're more than likely not going to get many assets in return.
yeah, in return, like because of the Arenado trade, even I do think he is overrated in my opinion. I don't think he's a top player in baseball. Like he's a top player in baseball, but a little bit lower than I feel like most people rank him. Let me just say that. Um, I feel like even with me thinking he's a little overrated, I still feel like the Cardinals got him for way too little. They gave basically nothing to get him. So when it comes to like a possible Bryant trade, I feel like the Cubs might maybe, if they're lucky, get one top 10 prospect, and that's basically the entire haul for Bryant. We would give up Bryant for a top 10 prospect, and that's all. So
Yeah, I would say for Brian, I'd be happy with two top 25 prospects from the Mets system. And we're talking like one around the 10, 11, 12 area, and then one around the 22, 23 area.
yeah,
I would take a really young, low A ball guy, and then a somewhat ready for MLB guy within the next 1 or 2 years.
yeah, I would take that too. But I feel like that is kind of a stretch just because of the Arenado trade. He just
Hmm.
they I can't believe that trade went through. To be honest, can't believe the Rockies accepted that. They got so little, in my opinion.
Yeah, they were really, really looking to get rid of him.
I feel like the reason why they tried to get rid of him though might have been his contract. His contract was pretty big, so maybe that was why. Maybe it was less about the player, more about the money. Who knows?
Especially with a really small market team like the Rockies. Once you have a contract like that on your books, that really limits what you can do. So they
Yeah,
were kind of dedicated to Arenado and Arenado only. And I know they have a bunch of players who they're looking to keep, like Trevor Story, who has a contract extension offer eligibility coming up soon.
yeah. I think he's a free agent after this year, and it sounds like they want to build around him possibly, which kind of would make sense. They'd want to build around him instead of Arenado because Arenado's 29 now. I think Story's 26 now, so he's 3 years younger. So whenever they do finish their rebuild, he'd probably be like 28, 29, depending on how fast they went, maybe 30. So he'd still be in his prime whenever the rebuild was over, compared to Arenado would be probably out of his prime. So it makes sense that they would trade Arenado and try to build around Story instead.
Yeah, let's go ahead and dive into our last point here. So the last point that we want to talk about today is the Trevor Bauer signing. I don't know if you guys heard or not yet. It happened a few days ago, but Trevor Bauer has officially signed with the Los Angeles Dodgers. What do you think about this, Colin?
Um, Personally, as somebody who's not a Dodgers fan, like not even a little bit, I kind of hate the Dodgers. I'm not happy. I was kind of happy when the report initially broke that he was signed with the Mets because I don't have anything against the Mets, and it seems like they're really going at it. So, Mets fans really, in my opinion, deserve a contending team after what they've dealt with the last few years with that team. So I was happy that it looked like he was signing there, and then I ended up right after I saw the report, I went to sleep and I woke up and all of a sudden he wasn't signed with the Mets. So I wasn't happy about that. And then I saw that a few days later he signed with the Dodgers and I wasn't happy. But it makes sense though. He's from Los Angeles. I'm pretty sure that was the team he grew up rooting for. So it makes sense. 3 years, 102 million. That's a massive deal. I'm pretty sure over the next 2 years he's guaranteed to be the highest paid player. Over those 2 years, he's gonna be making like something like 40 million a year or something like that. 38 million a year, I think, over the next 2 years. That's ridiculous. But it makes sense for both sides. Bauer got his money, and the Dodgers probably just made the best rotation in baseball because that rotation with Kershaw and Buehler and David Price is ridiculous. And then they have that one guy, I can't think of his name. They
They
have the
got
long hair.
Dustin May.
Yeah, Dustin May. I don't think he's going to start this year. I think he's going to be in the bullpen because their depth in their rotation is just so ridiculous. He might be in the bullpen this year.
And they still have that Urias guy.
Yeah, they still have him too. So, I mean, their rotations are ridiculous. They have basically like their entire rotation is full of like aces and number twos. They don't have anything in the rotation lower than number two. Like their rotation is pretty ridiculous. And this signing makes plenty like perfect sense to me because they just won the World Series last year. And I feel like one thing teams don't do enough of after they win is sometimes they can get a little like lazy in the offseason. They don't continue to be aggressive and continue making the moves that got them in that position to win the World Series in the first place. And I feel like this is a great move for the Dodgers to continue to be aggressive and continuing to, push, to separate themselves from every other team in baseball. So this um, move makes a lot of sense for the Dodgers in my opinion. So in terms of a grade, I'm gonna give it a B, only because I feel like the money might have been a little bit too much. But in terms of like anything else, it was a great sign for both sides.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that, Colin. Another point that I want to bring up here is that division is going to be absolutely stacked So you have the Padres and you have the Dodgers going up against each other for a significant part of their schedule. Those two rotations are going to be dueling it out. They're both going to be competing for the next 5 to 10 years, just absolutely going at it. Tatis is young. They got so many young pieces in San Diego, along with LA. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, Chris Paddock from the Padres, and they have that
love
Mackenzie
that.
Gore. Yeah, they have him too, Mackenzie Gore. The Dodgers still have some pretty decent prospects, I'm pretty sure too. So those two
Yeah, we'll
teams
see
are
if
gonna be.
Gavin Lux turns out to be anything special. So far, it's not looking like it. They still got Bellinger, who's really young and really good. Um, Corey Seager really surprised me. If he can produce like that, he can be a MVP candidate this year. I do think that they are going to end up re-signing Justin Turner. I know they haven't reached a deal yet, and he has been talking to some other teams, but I feel like they have to sign him back. He's kind of given everything he's had to that team, and after winning a World Series and being in their four hole for the last 6 or 7 years, they're not going to let him just walk away.
I don't know. They might. From what I've heard about what he wants a 4-year deal, even though he's already 36. So he wants to be signed till he's 40. I mean, obviously, he could, realize that it's not gonna happen because it's probably not gonna happen, and his contract wants could fall back into the range of the Dodgers, but I don't know. Especially because they're already over the cap now after that Bauer signing. So how much more are they really willing to go over the cap? And they are obviously one of the biggest market teams in baseball. The top three are probably the Dodgers, the Cubs, and the Yankees. So the Dodgers have plenty of money, but it's still how much are the Dodgers willing to go over the cap and have to pay that luxury tax? That's kind of
Yeah,
the question here.
it seems like the Dodgers have an endless bankroll. They're willing to spend whatever it takes to win. But what do you think would be their best option if they don't resign him? Do you think that they would trade for someone because they definitely have the assets, or do you think that they would possibly move over Seager to third base? Because I've heard rumors about that before as well.
I could definitely see Seager be moved to third base. Those are rumors that have been around since before Seager even came up to the big leagues because he's not the most mobile shortstop, and he is a bigger guy, so it makes sense to put him at third base. Because when you look at people like Chris Bryant, Arenado, they're like 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", 6'5". Most shortstops are like between like 5'11" and like 6'1". I think Seager's like 6'3". So he is, in terms of just like his build, more built for like a third base. But I don't know. To be fully honest, I don't know who's available still on the free agent market. I think the only third baseman left is Turner. So if Turner's out of their price range, I don't think that their return's going to be good enough on Turner. Then their best move would definitely be to either trade or move Seager to third and put someone as a shortstop.
Hmm. Who's their current second baseman?
I think Gavin Lux is right now. I
Hmm.
think I
Because
think he
I know Kiki Hernandez signed with a different team.
Yeah, so Gavin Lux has played. I think he has played shortstop a little bit in the minors, so he could move over to shortstop and put somebody else at second if they needed to. But obviously, it's going to depend on how the whole Turner thing turns out and how Gavin Lux plays. Because, like you said, he hasn't played great so far in the majors, which I think he's still 23, so he's still super young. Still got plenty of time to develop and great shoots potential. Which I mean, if you look at his AAA stats, he hit what, like 340 over like a full AAA year. So he's clearly extremely talented. He hasn't translated the MLB yet.
Yeah, whenever I've seen him playing AAA, I was shocked. I thought he was going to be the next big thing, but that talent just hasn't transferred over quite yet. And then I did notice here, I'm looking at the roster for the Dodgers. Another guy that I forgot to talk about was um, Tony Gonsolin. He's another pitcher who could be like a top 2, 3 starter on most teams, and he's probably going to be seeing mostly bullpen action this year.
Yeah, the Dodgers, like, they're easily the best team in baseball. They were the best team in baseball before the signing of Bauer, but now after they're like it's undisputed. Things would have to go terribly wrong for the Dodgers not to repeat, in my opinion. This team is just so well put together and so well rounded. It's ridiculous. Like they could have like two or three starters go down and still just have the depth though, put people in rotation and they'd still, perform really well. This team is just ridiculous.
Hmm. Yeah, so I think that concludes everything we have to talk about today, guys. Is there anything else you want to say, Colin?
You didn't give a grade, I don't think, on the Bauer signing.
Oh yeah, you're right. I'm gonna go ahead and grade it at a B. I originally had this at a C, but the more and more we talk about it, the more and more I like the deal. I think the reason I did have it at a C at first was just mainly because of the price. I think they overpaid for him. But whenever you have an endless bankroll, essentially, you're more inclined to spend more than other people would be. And I also think that Trevor Bauer is a great pitcher, but do I think he's the best pitcher in baseball? No, I do not think that. I think that DeGrom still has an edge over him. And last year, he played a very, very limited amount of games. He started 10 or 11 games. Don't recall exactly what it
I
was.
think I think 11 maybe.
11 games. So we got to see 11 games of him, playing Cy Young baseball. Is he going to do that in a whole season? We don't know yet. I think with the little sample size that we did see of him producing at that level, I think around, 31, 32 mil was the price that I would have paid for him. But, you know, they wouldn't have got him at that price because I guarantee the Mets were more than willing to pay 40 as well.
Actually, they were the overall deal the Mets were trying to sign him to was a 305 million, so they were giving him 3 million more overall than the Dodgers.
Wow.
So, yeah,
Yeah, that's absolutely insane.
if the Dodgers weren't going to offer him this deal, I feel like he probably would have went to the Mets because if he was offering, like you said, if the Dodgers were offering him 31, 32 million, he definitely would have went to the Mets, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's crazy that they just are willing to throw around that type of money on a starting pitcher with so little sample size, but hey, I guess that's why I'm here and not in the front office.
Yep.
Alrighty, guys. I appreciate you guys listening to our first episode here. Go ahead and leave us a like and a comment, share it with your friends, join the Jockstrapped Army. Go ahead and follow us on TikTok as well. My personal TikTok is Nick on Top, and our Jockstrapped podcast is at Jockstrap Podcast. We'll be throwing up some daily content over there as well. Go ahead and give us a follow on Twitter as well. Alrighty, guys. Peace out.